The biggest Bitcoin holder in the world always said he would never ever sell a single Bitcoin, but nothing could be further from the truth. Recently, Michael Saylor suddenly sold a huge amount of Bitcoin, but why would the most influential and biggest Bitcoin believer in the world sell? Is the crowd missing the signals, or does Michael Saylor see something the rest of us don't? That's exactly what we're going to find out in this video. Let's get into it, because this isn't just some guy taking a little profit. Strategy, Saylor's company, was for years the biggest buyer of Bitcoin of the entire market. And the moment the biggest buyer suddenly becomes a seller, something shifts at the very foundation of the whole market. Look at this chart. Right after the announcement, Bitcoin takes a bit downward. Not because almost 3,600 Bitcoin are that many, but because the market suddenly asks itself one thing: if Saylor sells, who's next? There's one number that decides whether this stays a ripple or grows into an avalanche. I will show you that number in a moment. But first you need to understand how Saylor Machines works, because without that the rest won't make any sense. Strategy, formerly known as MicroStrategy, was once just a software company, until Saylor decided in 2020 that all of the company cash reserves had to go into Bitcoin. From that moment on, the company turned into a kind of Bitcoin machine. Right now, Strategy owns more than 840,000 Bitcoin. That's almost 4% of all Bitcoin that will ever exist, bought at an average of around $74,000 each. Together, worth more than $60 billion. Okay, real quick. Do you want to see more videos like this one? Then don't forget to subscribe and give it a like. Now, let's keep going. Thanks. But how can a software company buy that much Bitcoin? For that, you need to look at the business model, and I will explain it to you with a snowball. Picture this: you're standing at the top of a snowy hill with a small snowball, and you give it a little push. It rolls down, picks up snow along the way, gets bigger, goes faster, gets bigger again, and goes faster again. That's exactly what Strategy does, only with money and Bitcoin. Step 1, the push. Saylor starts with his company's cash and buys Bitcoin. Think of that as the first handful of snow. Step 2, picking up snow. Strategy issues special shares, so-called preferred shares, and investors buy them and get a fixed dividend in return. On some of them, more than 10% a year. Saylor used that raised money to buy even more Bitcoin. Step 3, the ball gets bigger. All that buying often pushes the Bitcoin price up, and that makes the Bitcoin Strategy already owns worth even more. More investors step in and more money flows in, which buys even more Bitcoin. And so the ball keeps rolling. As long as Bitcoin rises or stays stable, this works perfectly. But a snowball rolling downhill has one problem. It can come to stop, or worse, it can roll backward. And whether that happens comes down to one promise Saylor made. Because all those investors who bought preferred shares get a fixed dividend, and that has to be paid out in cash every quarter. And that money doesn't fall out of the sky. As long as fresh money keeps flowing in, there's nothing to worry about. But during the last quarterly results, the truth came out. Strategy took a loss of billions of its Bitcoin position in a single quarter, mainly because of the dropped price. And then the exact thing happened that Saylor had sworn for years would never happen. On July the 6th, 2016, Strategy announced through an official filing that it had sold almost 3,600 Bitcoin for $260 million. And the reason was stayed right there: to pay the dividends. The man who said he would never sell, he sold. Not by choice, but because the pill had to be paid. Because this wasn't even the first time he sold. And this is what almost everyone overlooks. Back in May 2026, Strategy quietly sold 32 Bitcoin. Small, almost nobody noticed. But it was the first crack since 2022. Now you might think, hasn't Saylor sold before? And it's true. He sold in December 2022 as well, but that was a tax trick. He sold at a loss to deduct his loss from his taxes, and 2 days later he bought back even more Bitcoin than he sold. What is happening now is something completely different. This isn't a trick. This is a structural change, where selling Bitcoin becomes a fixed part of the business model. And Saylor said it himself in one line that sums it all up: buy more Bitcoin than you can sell. No more, never sell. Remember that one number I promised you? Here it comes. Because Saylor named the trigger himself. There is a value that shows whether the stock trades higher or lower than the Bitcoin the company owns. The moment the stock becomes cheaper than the Bitcoin is worth, selling becomes unavoidable. Right now, that value is just on the good side, around 1.2. That's the number to keep an eye on. And this is what no other YouTuber tells you, so let's just run the math. Scenario 1, Bitcoin at 60k. Roughly speaking, the stash is then still worth around 50 billion. Below the purchase price, but survivable. Scenario 2, Bitcoin at 40k. The stash drops to around 34 billion, and this is where it gets serious, because the fresh inflow largely dries up and strategy has to sell more and more Bitcoin to pay that same bill. Scenario 3, Bitcoin below $25,000. The stash is then only a fraction of what it was, and that's when it gets truly dangerous, because every time strategy sells, it puts the price further down, and a lower price means even more has to be sold. That's the snowball rolling backward, and now it only goes downhill and faster and faster. As long as Bitcoin stays around the $50k, there's little to worry about. The real danger zone sits around $30,000 to $40,000, especially if we hang around there for a longer time. So back to the question from the start. Does Saylor see something the rest of us don't? No. Saylor is trapped in his own machine, and the formula decides when he has to sell, not his conviction. While the crowd is now shouting on the news that Saylor is just buying a dip, or the opposite, that Bitcoin is going to zero, I'm watching that one number and the zone between $40,000 and $50,000, because that's where it gets decided in the coming period, whether this snowball keeps rolling or falls back. And whoever only reacts to the headlines keeps stepping in at exactly the wrong moment. So watch out. And if you haven't subscribed yet, subscribe so you don't miss the next one. See you there.